I'm Greg Tepper. That's Greg Powers. And this is This Week
in Cruton.
It's This Week in Recruiting with Greg Powers, the Next Level Athlete. Follow him on Twitter at GPowersScout. Follow Next Level Athlete on Twitter at NextLevelD1. Hello, Greg.
What's up?
What game were you at last week? You were at South Grand Prairie in Lancaster.
Yep. It was a
good
more
game.
entertaining game than I thought it was. I actually gave a little bit more of an edge to Lancaster, especially as the game started. They seemed to take control. But South Grand Prairie showed a lot of heart, especially after losing linebacker Marcel McDuffie early in the game, who's kind of at middle line, the inside linebacker that's the heart and soul of that defense, so to speak. They have some other good defensive players on that squad, but McDuffie was all around the football before he went out with concussion-like symptoms, and then Lancaster was able to use its speed to literally kind of run away or pull away in that game. Takeaway, Lancaster's got size up front. Both sides of the football, and they're rotating too deep on the defensive line and consistently throughout the game, which I think is a bit of a game changer for them. Still, that schedule,
yeah, it's brutal.
It's tough.
And the other thing is, when you think about Lancaster, typically whenever we talk about good Lancaster squads, it's not because they have great size. Like, generally speaking, it's because they've got dynamic playmakers on the outside. You go back to that team that played for a title in 2012-ish.
Yeah.
Those were teams that had dynamic athletes. When you add in size, that's what gets me intrigued. And by the way, if you start looking at 5A Division I, if Highland Park is indeed taking a step back towards the pack and they haven't separated themselves up in 5A Division I, then suddenly, why not a team like Lancaster, which is a team that I think is going to cause a lot of people some trouble. So, I am very, very interested. And they'll get their shot. That's a district matchup.
At least that Highland Park loss to Lone Star makes the field
correct
look different.
It does.
So now you say there's more hope for a lot more teams to be in that race. I personally look at Highland Park not being down as I see it, but we've watched Lone Star over the last few weeks. They're good.
They're really good.
And the quarterback is playing flawlessly.
Yeah.
And we didn't expect him to even be the starter.
Right.
So
Wrangle, Garrett Wrangle's been fantastic.
Very accurate.
Yes. Okay, so it's Greg Powers, Next Level Athlete. Let's talk a little bit of recruiting here. Let's talk about our prospect on the rise. Prospect on the rise, it's 2020 DeSoto offensive tackle Armaj Adams Reed, picked up his 10th offer, this one from Sam Houston State. There is not a question about size. This is a large child, 6'5", 325 pounds. The offer from Sam Houston State joins other offers like North Texas, Southern Miss, and then a variety of other FCS schools. He is, correct me if I'm wrong, still a little raw. A guy who needs a little bit of polish, but coaches have got to love the frame there.
Well, what I really, and actually to start the season off, I went out to specifically look at a couple of the top uncommitted offensive linemen, Cortland Ford, Armaj Adams Reed, in the DFW area, just to make some recommendations to some colleges on some of those guys and how they should approach their recruitments. And I walked away from the game against Jesuit watching Adams Reed and thinking, this is a versatile kid who's probably going to move inside at the next level, but he already has the strength and size that colleges are looking for, and he moves really well for a guy who's that big. I mean, we're watching his highlights right here, and he's able to easily get to the second level, secure blocks. So as this thing goes along, it wouldn't be surprised at all to see, because his list is kind of all over the place right now. He's got the non-P5 FBS offers like North Texas, Southern Miss, Utah State has offered him, and then he's got some D2 sprinkled in and, getting some attention all across the board. It wouldn't be a surprise to see his offer list climb 15 to 20 offers before he makes a decision which one will end up being that right offer. I know that some of those schools we talked about are probably watching this recruitment and hoping some of these big dogs don't get involved.
Yeah, I think that he's kind of flying under that radar still a little bit, but I feel like if DeSoto continues to rise up the ranks, maybe he's kind of the rising tide raises all boats type situation. You never know. He's a guy that certainly the size is going to catch people's eye.
Well, he was a transfer from Mesquite Horn in the offseason, so I'm not sure that some colleges didn't lose track of him throughout that. It's hard to lose track of a player who goes from Mesquite Horn to DeSoto. They're both prominent schools, but it does happen.
Sure.
Because you are expecting to be here and they're not.
To our commit of the week. Our commit of the week is West Mesquite, same in the DFW area. West Mesquite running back Ty Jordan, 2020 kid, committed to Texas. He had offers from a lot of other schools, including Baylor, Arkansas, TCU, Tennessee. And he's number 58 on our Hot 100. You're the recruiting expert. I don't think this guy's an every down back, but you want to talk about a game breaker and the kind of guy that if you can find ways to use his versatility and his ability in the open field, he can be a problem for a lot of teams.
Agreed. 100%.
Okay, cool.
100%. 100% agreed. You say that, and I agree with you. But when I've watched Ty Jordan in camps or events where he was with Seth McGowan or Zachary Evans, he has stood up to the test and doesn't look like on the same field as those guys. You know, he's a 5'7" guy, and these guys are bigger than him. But the way he moves and the way he operates catches your eye. He's a great pass catcher. He's electric, and he's legit speed, I think, at like a 10-4, 5, 100-meter kid. So,
yeah, he's a burner.
So the speed is there, and we all know the Texas running back situation this year.
Yes.
And he's a different type of guy to put in that mix. You know, they have a kid committed in Jaden Hullaby, who's a versatile athlete as they've recruited him, who has played multiple positions now at the high school level that he's at Mansfield Timberview. I think he's even played some quarterback this year. Has some running back skills. Big, powerful running back. You have Ty Jordan, who's an electric, I call them slot backs, a guy who you can move in and out of the slot, can catch passes, can stay on the field for all 3 downs. And then, of course, they've got a 5-star committed running back from out of state as well. So I think the running back question may be answered with what they have on campus. Some of those guys are hurt.
Yeah.
But now I think the running back picture moving forward into 2020 for Texas is not going to be an issue at all.
I think you're exactly right. And this is a guy who is, you know, as you mentioned, we were talking about a guy with the offensive lineman Adams Reed out of DeSoto, where size is his number one quality.
Right.
This is not Ty Jordan's number one quality, right? He's 5'7", 185 pounds. He's a more of a water bug type back, but the dude can. He runs tough. I think he runs tougher than his size.
Mesquite players are known to be tough.
Yes.
No matter where they go, Mesquite players are tough.
Yeah, they are. And so
Mesquite ISD.
Yes, that's true. And so West Mesquite 2020 running back Ty Jordan commits to Texas. That's our commit of the week. It's Greg Powers, the Next Level Athlete. Join us here on Texas Football Today. Get involved in the conversation, #TF Today. To our underclassmen of the week, we go to the Houston area. New Caney's 2021 athlete, Cale Sanders, but everyone calls him CJ. He committed to Texas Tech this week. And this is the first commit for Tech in the 2021 cycle. And I know that this is a guy who's been on our radar pretty much since he was a freshman in 2017, an electric athlete.
And he's a guy that's done some different things at New Caney. I think he's played more outside linebacker for them, running back, played both sides of the football, two-way guy. He was the district newcomer of the year as a freshman, continues to put up numbers into his sophomore season, and now his junior year, he's like one of the guys. You know, he's like that dude. Came to the Next Level Athlete camp back in January after having all of these skill sets and worked out at defensive back, and I don't know that he has a lot of experience doing that, but made the top 10 there. So you look at him going through these drills, and you can clearly see what Texas Tech saw in him, and we're able to get in on him early. I think it's his only listed offer, as a matter of fact, as I looked at his list in preparation for the show. But he's a guy who other schools are going to come after. So they're going to have to fend off other programs as people find out more about C.J. Sanders, because he's a really good player.
Well, Coach Brady Pennington there at New Caney is very high on him. You know, a guy who saw some action at running back last year, but then did the majority of his damage, I would say, at the cornerback spot. 65 tackles, 11 tackles for loss, 4 sacks. He's a dynamic playmaker that if Tech can hold on to him, he's an early commit to Texas Tech. If they can hold on to him, he is a guy who can certainly be a difference maker, and a guy that I think you can put it a variety of different ways. Obviously, the thing that stands out when you watch this film that we've got going on, quick feet, real quick feet, and it seems like he's got a lot of the ability to change direction pretty well, which is awful impressive.
And that's really impressive because you look at him and he has that frame that you kind of like it as a cornerback or defensive back prospect.
5'10", 170 will play.
Yeah.
That will play.
And long arms.
Yes, absolutely. To our recruit of the week, to San Antonio we go. Big game this week for Cibolo Steele as they take on Converse Judson. And I think when people talk about Cibolo Steele, they talk a lot about Jalen Jones for
Right.
obvious reasons. We had him as the defensive MVP in the on the super team in Dave Campbell's Texas football. But don't forget about Daniel Jackson, their wide receiver who earned. He was selected for the All-American Bowl this week. The Iowa State commit is the 69th rated prospect in Dave Campbell's Texas football's Hot 100 at TexasFootball.com. And I mean, this is a big deal. This is like these types of things. Getting invited to the All-American Bowl is serious, and he gets to play at home in San Antonio.
And we usually put up one NLA highlight reel per
Mm-hmm.
week. It's usually the prospect on the rise. We did 2 this week because I wanted people to see Daniel Jackson's frame. Look at this dude's legs. And there are some guys
Tree trunks.
There are some guys who leave the state or don't necessarily get recruited as highly as we think that they might. I mean, Daniel Jackson had 20-something offers, I think, but they were good. He committed to Iowa State. Not necessarily the school that you think of when you think of a top-tier Texas high school football recruit. Iowa State is getting the type of guy who could have an NFL upside. I mean, he's that good. They've produced NFL receivers in the past. I love his game. Strong hands. College pedigree, his brother's Mark Jackson at Oklahoma, brings a lot of the desirables you want to the table.
Well, and what's funny, when I think of Iowa State receivers, this is the type of frame that I think of.
Right.
It seems like they have a type. Matt Campbell has a type
I
up there at
agree.
Iowa State, and it's big framed receivers. And I mean, I think this is a guy that there are guys we talk about that don't necessarily pass the eyeball test. This guy passes the eyeball test.
And there are certain guys as you do rankings. I put together rankings now for years and years, rated probably 8,000 high school football players. There are guys within that rankings subset every year that you feel like you have like, what am I rankings wise? Am I missing the boat on this guy? He's number 69. He's a 3-star. Should he be a 4-star? Daniel Jackson is one of those guys who, if he has the type of career that I think that he could have, that I'm going to be kicking myself over, because I watched this guy early on in his development and thought, wow, I can't believe this guy doesn't have an offer yet. And that was back in July of 2018. And he didn't have an offer when I watched him in the camp setting. And I was like, he's going to have offers. And if we don't make him a 4-star, if he doesn't rise into that top 50, because, to be rated a 4-star, you have to be within that top 50. If he doesn't rise that high, will I be kicking myself like I was with a guy like Jakeem Grant, who was, like the number 51 player, or Connor Williams, who I think was number 51 and started as a freshman at Texas. We had doubts about Connor last year in his first year at Dallas, but he was drafted high and he's had a bounce back year, I think, so far for the Cowboys. But Daniel Jackson could end up being that type of recruit.
It's a big deal to get invited to the All-American Bowl, and that is what happened to Cibolo Steele 2020 wide receiver Daniel Jackson. Finally, it's this week in recruiting game of the week. We're going to the private school ranks in the DFW Metroplex. Argyle, Liberty Christian, and Plano Prestonwood, 2 programs that have a history of putting out big-time prospects, and once again, a lot of guys to keep an eye on. I think the star, if you want to say that, the star is probably...
It's tough.
I mean, Colin Gamble, the corner at Liberty Christian, but I think you can also add in the quarterback, Daniel Greek, who's the son of Stephen Greek, their coach. But Prestonwood's got some dudes, like Riley Wilson, the wide receiver. A lot of interesting cats in this Argyle, Liberty Christian, Plano Prestonwood game.
And this game is a unique game because, of course, the head coach at Argyle Liberty Christian, Stephen Greek, was assistant coach at Prestonwood Christian, and they knocked Prestonwood out of the playoffs last year to advance there. And I just think this is a in a down kind of, I want to say it like that. It's an up year for private school football, because we don't know definitively who the favorites are. And I think in years past that you were able to look, but because of Dunn's rise last year, they started off slow and then had a dominant defense and went into the TAPS playoffs and were able to take home the championship when everybody thought it was going to be Prestonwood.
Well, what's funny is that we're talking about 2 teams that presently, now we only do top 5s in Dave Campbell's Texas football in our rankings, but both these teams are unranked. I mean, that speaks to, I think that what you've got in the private school ranks this year is a lot more parity. That last year, it kind of felt like it was Cedar Hill Trinity and kind of everyone else. Now it's like, I don't know, like Parish Episcopal looks good.
And that's kind of
Nolan looks good.
That's where I was kind of going. I was going to say, like, this Prestonwood Argyle Liberty Christian game, you would look at it in a normal year rankings-wise and say, is this a down game this year? Mm-hmm. And I don't necessarily think it is a down game. It's just that the private school ranks this year, it's much more wide open. And I don't know that there's a clear-cut favorite. And we'll be watching all those guys, but I'll be personally keeping an eye on Argyle Liberty Christian linebacker Micah Grizzle. Hi, fam.
Plano Prestonwood, if you're interested in our computer rankings, is number 5. Argyle Liberty Christian's off to a rough start. They play a very difficult schedule. They're 0-3, but they are still the 31st ranked in our computer rankings. So,
can we get a quick clarification too? Hector Rios wants to know what the main difference between a 3-star and 4-star player is.
Greg Powers.
Well, this is an easy answer because we came up with a system at DCTF that's able to easily answer that. If you're rated within the top 50, you're a 4-star, or if you're rated within the top 5, you're a 5-star. So those top 50 prospects will be 4 and 5 stars, and if you're outside of the top 50, you're a 3-star.
Then in the top, but still in the top 100.
It's still in the top 100. We'll expand the 3-star rankings to about 250 to 300 players. Mm-hmm. I would expect by National Signing Day. Mm-hmm. Those guys are mostly going to be your 3-star types. If you're outside of that number, then you're probably more of a 2-star player. But to be a 4-star player, you need to be rated within the top 50.
That's easy.
Perfect. And there was one more question that I'm actually just as interested as our viewers in. Sale said, can we get Powers to give us a rundown on Tepper's recruiting profile? If you were going to recruit Tepper, what would be your thought process there?
Well, I have heard that the JV statistics were great.
Excellent. Good. Especially as an offensive guard.
Really,
a lot of statistics.
Really, that shows a lot of heart.
Yeah.
You know, because not every football player will answer the JV calling and step up to the plate and give everything they have to the team. Because it takes a special breed to be that guy.
Yeah, it takes a special breed to be that bad and just to keep coming to practice for some reason.
He's a hustle player.
Yeah,
maybe not much skill,
lunch
but
pail.
hustle.
A lot of lunch pail.
Oh, I like
big
that.
lunch pail guy. He's Greg Powers. He would rate me as a negative 3-star recruit.
You would be outside the top 250, it's fair to say?
I think that's fair. Yes. Follow him on Twitter at GPowersScout. Follow Next Level Athlete on Twitter at Next Level at D1. Powers, appreciate your time. Let's do it again next week.
Let's do it.